It was a pretty busy weekend for movies. There were three that came out. The first one I got to see was Death of a Unicorn, which was just really pathetic. These A24 movies are just kind of a chore to watch at this point. The most common pattern I see in these A24 movies is that they're way more visually stunning than they are good stories. Civil War last year was a perfect example. Awesome cinematography, editing, and color grading. Awesome special effects, sound design, and production design, but just a disgusting and completely tone-deaf story. Death of a Unicorn doesn't even really live up to this standard because not only is the story kind of terrible, but the CGI just hurts your eyes and the production is just very mid. But let's get right into the preliminary hearing. The movie stars Jenna Ortega, who's not bad. I only saw her in Wednesday. She's a fine actress. The movie also stars Paul Rudd, who ever since the newest Ant-Man movie hasn't really been able to land a hit. I'm starting to get kind of concerned because I actually really like Paul Rudd. We've also got Will Poulter, who I really liked in the Maze Runner movies and We're the Millers, but same thing with Paul Rudd. You gotta be careful what roles you're accepting. Then there's Tia Leone, who was fantastic in Madam Secretary, but this movie just really ruins her potential for me. She basically Toni Colletted herself from the movie Mickey 17, which I just reviewed, where in the movie she kisses up to her husband, but also does most of the thinking for him, and it's just really cringe. The movie's rated R. It runs at a painful 108 minutes, but at least the budget is pretty small at only $15 million, so at least there's that. As usual, a quick synopsis from IMDb. Father-daughter duo Elliot and Ridley hit a unicorn with their car and bring it to the wilderness retreat of a mega wealthy pharmaceutical CEO. So already just from reading that, the movie is extremely predictable. You already know what kind of social commentary is going to be in this movie, and you definitely already know how I feel about that shit. The trailers spoil most of the movie, but at least they get the job done. I saw it in theaters one time, and I wasn't that aroused by it. It also just straight up plagiarizes the alarm sound that you hear on like the Empire ships or whatever in the Star Wars universe, but that was really the only takeaway I got from the trailers. From this point forward, I will be talking spoilers, so if you want to hear my final verdict spoiler free, skip to this time in the video. So we'll start with characters. Ridley is kind of frustrating, and it's not because she's a Gen Z socialism activist that's like super obnoxious, but it's because she has no character flaws. This is like the biggest mistake that you see these political allegory movies make, is that the message that they're trying to push is objectively correct, so the character that they have to push it can't have any flaws. And this is something that we saw with the newest Captain America movie with Sam Wilson. In this movie, Ridley only makes like one mistake, but it's actually not really a mistake. It's more of a net positive because one of the 1%er Big Pharma executives gets killed, so hooray. She looks like a straight up heroin addict in this movie, just talking like straight Fent vibes. And I'm not trying to call her ugly or anything, because she's actually really pretty in real life, but it's just funny to me that the studio thought that this motherfucker is what the future of this country and Gen Z in general looks like. Then we have Elliot, who's supposed to be like the average white-collar American who hates the system in which he works, but he doesn't really have a way out. And it's like, I get what they're going for. I can kind of understand the whole desperation of that sort of thing. But cry me a river. If it's really that compromising to your morals, you'll find a way out. I mean, my church is open every Sunday, in all seriousness. Then you have basically the whole Leopold family, and they're like these big pharma executives that are wealthy, greedy, corrupt douchebags. But it's so cartoonish and over-the-top blatant that it's just super inorganic and immersion breaking. For example, there's a part where the wife says, "We live on the land of the Blackfeet tribe," but who am I kidding? No one wants or needs to talk about that. Then why is she talking about it? This is what I'm talking about. Like, the dialogue is just so blatantly political that it's just such a turnoff. And look, I understand. I get it. It's a satire. I understand that. But it's so over the top that it doesn't complement the story it's trying to tell. It actually roadblocks it. Like I just said, it's such a turnoff. The whole premise of the story is that Elliot accidentally kills this unicorn with his car, and it has biological properties that can cure illnesses up to and including like cancer. But these big pharma executives that he works for as an attorney want to use it for their own financial gain and health benefit. Like I said, the movie is very predictable. Obviously, by the end, all the greedy, corrupt fascists who justify unethical science to exploit nature get what they deserve, and all the unicorns live happily ever after. I mean, I could have never seen that shit coming. Could you, Mr. Nolan? Wow. The dynamic between this big pharma family and this little girl Ridley is just really backwards because the whole point of storytelling is that you have to persuade your audience. And while this big pharma family uses logic and reasoning, Ridley goes off of myth and speculation. This one scene sums it up perfectly. The whole movie, the big pharma execs and their scientists have been using science, evidence, and reasoning to explain the situation that they're in, but Ridley has been going off of folklore on 3 historical tapestries. Somehow, Ridley comes to the conclusion that the unicorns can be revived. I don't know if that's in the folklore, but don't expect like an explanation because they're not going to give it to you. But anyway, she says, I just have a feeling that if we don't give back the baby unicorn, then bad things are going to happen to us. Don't my feelings count for something? And apparently we, the audience, are supposed to think that her feelings do count for something. No, they don't count. That's not what audiences want or care about. You have to earn that shit, not presume it. Sorry to break it to you, but high-profile decisions are not made on the basis of feeling. They're made on the basis of logic and reasoning. Unfortunately, honey, the world doesn't care about your feelings. I just think it's really stupid because this idea that humanity has lived by for thousands of years is the exact opposite of what this movie is pushing, which is you're entitled to your feelings and it's despicable that anyone can deny you that. It'd be like me coming on camera, reviewing a movie and just being like, oh my God, guys, I just have this like deep feeling that this is just really fucking terrible. 0 out of 10, wouldn't recommend, when in reality, the whole point and actual theme of my channel is evidence and reasoning. Of course, none of that really matters. Ridley was obviously right about everything. All the evil rich people get fucking equalized. The cute little baby unicorn reunites with its family and they ride off into the midst of Avalon or whatever the fuck. Now, in terms of compliments that I will give, I will say that the pacing was very solid and steady, but on the other hand, the plot really had no goals other than vote blue, no matter who. Besides the over-the-fucking-top political commentary, the dialogue is fine, but Will Poulter's character is really the only one that you get acquainted with, while the other characters are just baseline plot devices with no depth at all. Will Poulter really carries this movie, even though there's really not much to carry. Politics, there's a lot. If you haven't already noticed, the big theme of the movie is Big Pharma bad, new shit good, communism good, you know. Does anyone want to explain to these people where their beloved vaccines come from? I understand that the healthcare industry isn't always fair and that it's a complicated issue, but you can't make a movie full-on villainizing it and then at the same time ramming through these vaccine and booster mandates for like full-on 2 years. And I fully understand the public frustration with drug pricing and commercialization and all that. It frustrates me too sometimes. But the truth is, and this is a hard pill to swallow, no pun intended, but without Big Pharma, we wouldn't have such pivotal treatments for conditions like HIV, AIDS, different treatments for cancer, and just increased life expectancy overall. And by the way, none of this means that I'm an anti-vaxxer by any means, because I know someone's going to say that, but I'm just trying to make the point that there's a lot of hypocrisy and this huge double standard surrounding this issue. It's almost identical to the whole defund the police movement, where they only look at the bad shit and never the good shit. Sure, some shady shit happens a lot of the times, but without it, you wouldn't have a functioning society. There's also other shit, like right at the beginning of the movie, the writers instantly move the goalpost by basically saying Big Pharma is bad, and even if they try to do something good, in reality, it's just them reputation laundering, which begs the question, what if they cure fucking cancer? Is that reputation laundering? Also, apparently the research that Ridley does is misogynistic, yet she still uses it anyways. She also calls Will Poulter's character a fascist, but to be honest, I'm only 75% sure she says the word fascist. It happened really fast, but similar to the other political commentary in the movie, it felt really out of place when she said whatever she said. So assuming she did say that, it's really stupid because she calls him a fascist because he was preventing her from leaving the house. The term fascist these days has truly lost its meaning. Again, assuming that she actually said the word fascist, it's like me saying vegetables are junk food because I don't like the way they taste. I'm completely disregarding the entire definition of the word junk food. The contrast I'm making here is also super ironic because by preventing her from leaving the house, he arguably did her a favor in the moment. There's also this part where the group votes on who should go outside to fix this electrical problem, basically putting themselves in mortal danger of being killed by the unicorns. They all vote on this one innocent guy to go out and fix the problem, and Will Poulter's character says, "Yeah, democracy wins." And that line is just so unspeakably frustrating because it literally proves right in front of our faces why direct democracy is a dangerous thing, because it's two wolves and a lamb voting on what's for dinner. Yet the left is still devoted to this idea of democracy, even though they're clearly saying the quiet part out loud and unintentionally so. There's also the usual mocking of Christianity. Ridley literally compares the tapestries to Christianity by saying, quote, "It uses art making as a way to enforce obedience," which, first of all, is the most odd and inorganic choice of words. But second of all, I've been a Christian for 22 years, and I've never gotten that impression, ever. And I'm not Catholic or Orthodox or one of the denominations that uses a bit of art making, and I don't really agree with them either, but if you're gonna criticize them, do a better job making the connection. Art making? Really? That's your big anti-Christian argument? Come on. Come the fuck on. Give me a break, seriously. It's really stupid because, in my opinion, the politics are really what held this movie back. Even though all the evidence points to the contrary, I still give these movies the benefit of the doubt. And it's like the writers were writing and they were weighing whether or not to write actually good dialogue or insert political propaganda wherever they could. And every time they did it, it was the political propaganda, and it just completely turned me off because, once again, it was just so fucking blatant. The production design is basically just the stereotypical studio rented mansion and then the fake ass forest that they had. The sound design and the soundtrack might as well just be non-existent. I have no recommendation of that. Cinematography, editing, color grading, and special effects are actually pretty fucking atrocious if we're going off of the A24 standards. None of it is eye candy, otherwise it's just mediocre at best. So, for my final verdict, I will be ruling against Death of a Unicorn at 32%. Like I said, it's a somewhat creative premise, but it really just shoots itself in the foot prioritizing the satire aspect. And look, I don't have a problem with satire. I actually think that not only is satire a good thing, but that it's necessary, as long as you have your priorities straight. I know someone's gonna say, it's just satire, cool your jets. This is not satire. This is just straight up political propaganda. The movie The Campaign, that's a satire because at least it eased the tension, everyone could laugh at it, and it understood the priority, which was comedy and entertainment over proving a point about politics as a whole. What's the takeaway from the movie? Drug companies exist only to profit off of the suffering of the less fortunate. Putting aside that totally flaccid dick message, why isn't the movie more about unicorns? I think we can all agree that this movie was more about the message it was pushing than the actual creatures it was exploring. Now, should you go see the movie, rent it, or stream it, or just not watch it at all? I say don't really watch it, but you could stream it if you want to turn your brain off because it's kind of funny, even if it's just beating a dead unicorn. But that's all for this review. If you enjoy these reviews, please consider dropping a like. Next week we have a Minecraft movie. That's going to be a big one, so make sure you're subscribed. But that's all for this case. This court's adjourned.